everybody, and this week I've been having a little bit of a tinker around with The Last Tinker, City of Colours. Tinker time, The Last Tinker. Yep. So can I please get an intro now? So, The Last Tinker, City of Colours. Let me tell you a little story. One day I was skimming through an issue of Official PlayStation Magazine UK and I noticed that in the review section there's screenshots of a game I've never heard before. I look at the page that the review is on and the screenshots and the game itself look fucking awesome. The guy that reviewed the game gave it a decently high score and called it the best callback to collectathon platformers that anyone has seen in a long time. And naturally, being a huge collectathon fan myself, I got the game straight away, downloaded it and played it to experience the best thing ever that this guy was saying. And you know what? This game is so close to being good that it hurts. In the game, you play as a young ape thing named Koru, and he lives in Tinkerworld, which is a vastly diverse world, a new world, vastly diverse, very colourful, and it has a slight dark history attached to it. The land was once peaceful, happy and joyful until the peace and the balance kind of undid itself when all of the different colours that lived within this world started turning against each other because they all have different personalities based on the colour that they are, and they just ended up getting fed up with each other and then split Tinkerworld into different districts. Just for examples, there was the red district because all the reds were too angry, and then there's the blue district because they're too sad. You get the idea. Anyway, one day while going about his everyday life, Koru finds out through means of whatever fucking destiny plot you want to throw in that he is actually the last remaining Tinker in the world. And Tinkers actually hold this immense special secretive power to overcome this evil in the world called the bleakness. And that's pretty lucky, I suppose, because the bleakness had no idea that there were any Tinkers left, and so managed to break into Tinkerworld, trick Koru into actually letting them into the city, and then now threaten all of the world by turning the whole entire the universe into a blank canvas of violent whiteness. The whiteness and the blankness and the bleakness, as it's called, harms everybody. The living people, all the plants, the buildings, everything. So to beat the game, you travel through all of the districts of Tinkerworld, reunite everybody together, cooperate, and then save the world from the bleakness together in perfect harmony. Now this game's plot actually leads me into a few things I really liked about this game. Firstly, the themes presented to you. I'll talk more about the gameplay later, but suffice to say, it's extremely simplistic. It's simplistic enough to be obviously made for kids in mind. And if it wasn't clear from my explanation of the plot, this game obviously features a lot of pretty deep themes for a platforming game. Racial segregation, abuse, and world peace, and the way that all of these themes are presented to you, I found quite admirable. The way that you find out in the beginning of the game how each district in Tinkerworld ended up turning against each other, and then the way you're then, without choice, thrown into all of these different districts and are forced to cooperate and commune with the sometimes standoffish and sometimes abusive residents of each district, and then go into the parts of the game where you got to reunite them and give them all of the strength to cooperate to overcome the bleakness, I thought was done brilliantly. It's also great how this plot weaves around this incredibly creative world, and it promotes creativity, but also illustrates the dangers of exploiting creativity. And it presents to you what would happen if we had too much creativity thrown at extremist, opinionated people, what kind of danger that has to power and authority, and just overall peace and cooperation throughout the world. The progression that you feel through the game's plot is marvellous, and where the metaphors in the story are pretty obvious for older players, for younger players, the game is presenting them in such a minimalistic fashion that it's simple enough to understand and pretty decent enough to grasp, which is great as well because in between all of these serious bits, the dialogue and writing itself between each character is pretty well written and quite witty occasionally, so it's engaging for kids and I would say adults as well. Now, since this game is subtitled The City of Colours, you would expect a lot of colours from this game, and you know what? The game really fucking delivers on that front. The universe of Tinkerworld is, in my opinion, one of the most spectacularly realised gaming worlds I have ever seen, and the fact that this is an indie game just made me blow all of my expectations out of the water. The chunky and fabric-y kind of childlike art style is superb. Each district has its own incredible atmosphere and diverse aura, this feeling about it, and just generally all of the visuals in this game are a feast for the eyes. Every area of the game that you explore is extremely memorable, and the developers knew exactly what emotions and feelings and everything it wanted to convey between each district itself in the way it looks and the character behaviours within that district. The colours, oh lord, the colours, they literally suck you out of wherever you're sitting in the living room, on your PC desk. It sucks you out and just leaves you to wander in this universe. It's wonderful. Not to mention the music is incredible, and it's got some of the best atmospheric platformer pieces that I have heard since Oddworld or even Jak and Daxter. But the music opposed to those games, in my opinion, has more of a flow to it. It feels much more organic, and that's mostly because of more acoustic instrument usage instead of digital instrument usage, which matches the whole like kind of traditional fabric weaving kind of visual style that this game's going with. It matches the traditionalism of the visuals within the music, and it just feels perfect for all the areas you explore and all the weird guitar pieces and everything. It's brilliant. The characters as well are designed adorably, and whenever you interact with them, they're creatively presented to you, and they're just loads of fun to run around and talk to. It makes this world feel much more alive. Overall, the entire presentation is beautiful, mystifying, heartwarming, and it just never makes you want to leave this world. Now, like I said earlier, this is definitely a game aimed at kids. You know, flashy colours, cute characters, simplistic story and theme presentation, and simplistic gameplay. Now, simplicity isn't inherently a bad thing. It can be great when it's constantly engaging and addictive, like in many portable or iOS games. And for the most part, The Last Tinker does that pretty well. Koru is really fun to control, despite not being able to jump pretty much all the time, and he has a real weight to him. Combat, though, is really strange because it's thrown in with this Batman Arkham City style beat-em-up system, you know, with counterattacks and using the stick to jump between enemies. And if you're well versed in the Batman Arkham games, this will come as no surprise to you, and obviously because it is more aimed at kids, it would be a bit too simple for some of the more experienced gamers out there. But for kids especially, this combat system is very easy to grasp, in this game at least, and it's pretty tricky to master in that sense as well. And yes, it may look and feel really out of place, but you know what? I haven't got a problem with it, really. It's really weird and kind of nice to see this weird kind of combat system in a collectathon platformer of all things. And not to mention, it also provides the main bulk of the game's challenge. Not to mention, the collection aspect of the game is great. Loads of nooks and crannies, boxes to break, which is really fun to do, loads of things to collect, different things everywhere. And yes, it may be satisfying and everything, but like I said in the beginning of this video, this game is so close to being good that it actually hurts. And here's why. There are some stealth parts. They're fucking terrible. They make no sense. I mean, there were little to none of them, to be fair, so I don't know why I'm complaining about this really, but it just seemed really out of place to throw these stealth bits into the game when they're not really. This isn't a game built around stealth whatsoever. I mean, not having any stealth control commands doesn't really help the situation, but the fact that sometimes you can run past like enemies' lantern spaces, but then other times you can't because you'll get spotted. What? And the fact that the game expects you to do these bits really quickly as well, otherwise you will get cornered and then there's nothing you can do. Not fun. Also, the lack of a free jump command feels extremely out of place for a game like this. It works in Zelda really well, and hell, it even works in Harry Potter of all games, but this is a collectathon platformer themed around exploring a universe. Tinkerworld is begging to be climbed, guys. It's begging to be explored around every possible hillside. It's begging to include more jumping skill challenges. And the fact that you can't do that makes it feel extremely restrictive. With the whole auto-jumping mechanic, this also means that running on balancing poles is automatic, grabbing things like monkey bars is automatic, swinging on things is automatic. It's all automatic. And most natural platformer context-sensitive commands that you would expect would require players' input of skill are all automatic. So jumping puzzles are automatic, climbing puzzles are automatic. It's pretty much every kind of skillful platformer trait is automatic in this game. And sometimes you don't even feel like you're collecting and exploring. It instead feels like you're just on this train track, and when you get to the next station, in which case you can relax and start having a mooch around, you can then carry on with the next train track platforming bit again. So yeah. Speaking of feeling restrictive as well, the hub worlds of the game are great. They're wide open, there's loads of things to see, loads of things to collect, loads of people to talk to, secret areas, you know, the works. However, once you're thrown into the tasks that you're set, meaning leaving the town, the game takes a step down, a big step down, because it actually ends up taking a surprisingly linear downturn, with some areas still offering plenty of alternate paths and like places to explore, but the whole concept is still the same. A lot of it is just claustrophobic straight paths with a few bends in them, and I mean, I love games like Crash Bandicoot, don't get me wrong, there are games that can do that really well, but the difference here is that with the auto jumping and the auto everything else, the only thing that isn't auto is pretty much the combat. So in the platforming bits, the platforming if you can call it that, you're just on an auto track with no challenge whatsoever. So but basically imagine playing Crash Bandicoot, but all of the jumping is done for you, all of the like tight bits are done for you, all of the climbing and the monkey swinging is done for you. That's what it feels like sometimes. So most of the time you're set on an auto path to the next combat section or to the next roadblock where you need to solve a puzzle, and that's pretty much it. Yes, you get a few different abilities along the way, and you get a few different abilities with your companions to help you out with these puzzles, but due to the surprising lack of like brand new powers for Koru to use and extend his abilities with, apart from one or two of them, and a few combat upgrades as well, it just feels extremely situational. This also means that there are no parts of the game which require, like, major revisiting to test out these new powers and unlock new things and find new things that were, like, previously unreachable, which is great in these kinds of collectathon platformers, and this game just lacks it. And that's mainly due to the fact that I said earlier, all of the powers just feel extremely, like, situational, and it only feels like they're there to get past certain blocked paths to advance the story, and that's pretty much it. Lastly, I have to mention something that you've probably been noticing through this whole review on the little TV. That frame rate. For some reason or another, nonsensically, I have no idea, there are parts of the game which have loads of action going on that run really smoothly, and there are parts of the game which are really quiet and are just walking around that play really smoothly, but then for whatever reason there are some parts of the game where, okay, understandably sometimes when there's a lot of action there's a bit of a slowdown, but then there are some parts when you're just quietly walking and it slows down. It just decides to slow down and stutter whenever the fuck it feels like it, and you wonder what the game is doing sometimes. This game is on Steam as well as PS4, so how it plays on PC I have no idea at all, I'm afraid, but on PS4 at least it can sometimes really suck you out of this lovely atmosphere the game creates. For everything wrong with this game though, I still had fun with it. I found it fun, I found it engaging, and it's nice to see these kinds of platformers kind of come back into the limelight. We need more platformers like this, but they need to be a lot better. This is not going to do compared to the classics. Even if exploring the City of Colours was worth it for me alone, we need to up our game here, folks. Saying that though, I've been tinkering around with the last tinker, last around with the tinker. I can definitely say that this game is acceptable. I'm pretty much bang dot in the middle, 5 out of 10 on this, a low end acceptable. I really adored the world, the characters, the exploration, some of the platforming I kind of like because it is very relaxing. It's simple but it's relaxing, and some of the combat I liked as well. And for a mainly aimed at kids game, the game does a decent job of introducing kids into this style of game, for sure. And it knows when to be slightly challenging when it needs to be. For everyone else though, especially people like me who love their collectathons, this game, it feels like it tries too hard to emulate the classics of the day like Spyro, Jak and Daxter and Banjo-Kazooie, and it tries too hard in that regard. Instead of getting everything that made those games great and amping it up for the next gen, instead it strips back far too much because it tries to keep its own identity. So to do that, it strips back a lot of what made those games great. And that means, unfortunately, it just doesn't stand up with the greatest collectathons due to its gameplay. This game may be fun to play through on the odd occasion, and it has a fantastically amazing world, but it tries too hard to emulate the classics of their day and yet do really strange, restrictive things to keep its own identity. And unfortunately, in all of its odd attempts to do things differently, it's just not as good as the classics. Farewell everybody, and until next time, take care. Hello there everybody, and thanks so much for watching my review of The Last Tinker City of Colors on the PS4 at least. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider leaving a little like for me because it helps everybody out on YouTube out a huge amount. And if you want to see more of what I do, please consider subscribing to my channel because I upload a video every single Sunday except when I'm ill or I'm on holidays. So yeah, I guess you can't go wrong with that. If you want to see what games I've been playing and what games are on my shelves right now, then go into the description to find my Games Grabber profile, where you'll also find Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, all of my socials and all that stuff. And I'm also going to take this time to give a huge thank you to my top Patreon supporters. So you guys, thank you so much. Nicole Gunara, Tony Pierce, Mohammed Al-Sali, Greg Black, Abdullah Almana, Brad Bird, Tamaxco, Benjamin Peasley, Ahmed Al-Mutawa, and Alan Angert. Thank you so much, all of you guys, and thank everybody at home for watching this video. And if it's your birthday today or watching this video, then happy frickin' birthday to you, and please remember to stay beautiful.